Bishop Girls. She, however, came to limelight in the year 2017 when she landed the lead role in the movie King's Wife. This was closely followed by another lead role in the movie titled Women on Fire. The fifth child in a family blessed with 6 children, Chioma Blessing Roha has starred in several Nollywood films in what can best be described as a vibrant and upwardly mobile career. Such movies include Bad Blood, King of Men, All for Mma, The Anointed Bride, Love and Echoes, Enemy Within, Stronger Than Pain, Figure 8 Babes, Royal Certificate, Online Delivery, Dirty Reflection, She's Mine, By My Window, Wicked Wife Parts 1 and 2, Prince of Fire, and many more. As we would always say, the sky is just the starting point for our star to watch, and we wish, her the very best of luck. It's time now for us to take a trip round the entertainment circles. Guess what? This week, we're going all the way to the Republic of Benin. Yes, that's talking about a neighboring African country, to bring you some hot and juicy stories from there. Something is happening with one of our major filmmakers. Let's take a round of our moments and events.
In a career which spanned more than 4 decades in film, television, and theater, she became known for her portrayal of a strong African woman. Today, she is being awarded with honoris causa degree, Doctor of Philosophy in Arts, by the prestigious Estam Formation University. She will from now on be addressed as Dr. Shola Shobowale.
We have a purpose to raise exceptional leaders, which is one of the reasons we chose Dr. Shola Shobowale and others for the honoris causa degree. Dr. Shola Shobowale has proven herself to be exceptional in her career as she projects herself to be a strong African woman who is diligent, passion-driven, and committed to work. We have no doubt that she will be a good representation of the institution, positive influence to students, and a ray of light to the community at large.
The journey in life will not only be the most pleasant, and you will definitely will have challenges along your way. But know this, your circumstances never dictate your course in life. The responsibility to chart your course lies with you. Do not make excuses. Live and love life.
To talk of how much you have done for TV.
It says, Doctor, so I like pronounce it to shiver of the words. I got it.
Yes, there's so much happening in the entertainment scene, and from the Republic of Benin, we return home here in Nigeria, and this is where we draw the curtain on this week's episode of Nigerian Movies Today. We do hope you've had a good time with us. Let's do this again same time next week on the network service of the NTA. I am Ololade Adenijadele. Bye for now.
and welcome to another amazing edition of your weekend.
I'm telling you, it has to be heat and it has to be steamy, it has to be hot, but we've decided that, somebody has to tell a story that is family oriented.
I got you all to fight you.
Welcome to another edition of Talking Movie.
Ethan knows everyone he ever cared about.
See, when you say pour out, you can't call water. You can't see, you don't excavate water.
This is a #1 program, Gallery.
Do you love to gist or gossip?
It's not it is extremely wrong. And we cannot take it.
Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Whip and Grill.
Welcome to the slant today, where we say it as it is and we get to enjoy ourselves talking about various things that are happening in our society.
I want to hear more, please. Beyond 6 packs.
Because your job still remains as the man to protect the woman, to project the woman.
You need to do that again.
There is ongoing conscious efforts by the Independent National Electoral Commission to provide platform for people with special needs to exercise their franchise in the forthcoming general elections. The view of the importance of next year's elections, various pressure groups under the auspices of people living with disabilities have been engaging their members to play a key role in the elections process and ensure they tune themselves with technology adopted for the election. Therefore, improving election fortunes of people living with disabilities is the focus on Panorama today. Glad to have you join us. I am Salamatu Lukman Muhammad. The Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, has stressed the need for the United Nations Security Council to admit Nigeria as permanent members of the Council to accommodate African interests. He said this while addressing members of Legislative Mentorship Initiative who were on learning visit to the State House. Professor Gambari said Nigeria cannot be ignored in international affairs as the most populous black country in the world, in addition to her sustained contribution to regional and global peace. The Chief of Staff noted that Nigeria is also economically strong, which make it giant in Africa. He described the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari as uncommon among his colleagues in African continent, especially his commitment to leave a legacy of free and fair elections. On Nigeria's quest for the expand the 15-member United Nations Security Council, Gambari said the demand is within the ambit of fairness, equity, and justice. The United Nations Under-Security Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, is seeking increased participation of the Nigerian Armed Forces in the ongoing peacekeeping operations spearheaded by the United Nations. The United Nations Under Secretary General for Peace Operations stated this while on a working visit to the Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Rabo, at the Defense Headquarters, Abuja. He noted that the deteriorating security challenges in most of the United Nations across the globe requires more collaborative efforts between United Nations and affected countries. The Chief of Defense Staff acknowledged that Nigeria's deployment of troops in past United Nations peacekeeping operation has enabled the force to build the much-needed defense capabilities to address emerging security threats. As the 2023 general elections draw close, security reports point at security concerns about political thuggery as potential threat to the elections. The threat concerns came to the fore at the release of the second and third quarter security situation report for Kaduna State. Anthony Forsen reports.
Togri poses to the forthcoming general election is the Director of Kaduna State Command of the Department of State Security.
We are likely to be challenged by political thuggery. It's a thing that we really need to prepare for.
The event, which was meant to present the second and third quarter 2022 security situation report of the state, gave heads of military formations in the state the opportunity to make inputs to the conversation.
As noted, our air operations have improved in recent times. I want to appeal that the public comes forward with information, especially when we see people planting devices in their farms. The security situation, especially in the southern part of Kaduna, has improved. We are going to continue with our efforts to ensure that there is lasting peace, to ensure that the security improves in this.
You're still watching Panorama on the network service of the NTA. We're going on a short break. We'll be right back.
The vaccine offers hope for a safe country free of coronavirus. I urge all state governments, traditional and religious leaders to take the lead in the mobilization effort within their environment and spheres of influence. I similarly urge all eligible Nigerians to present themselves and be vaccinated in accordance with the order of priority already mapped out at the various authorized designated centers only.
Hello and welcome to the Abuja Network Center. We've lost the signal from Kaduna. World leaders are in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, for the biggest climate conference, COP27, to define pathways for climate action to meet net zero carbon emissions. But a potential conflict looms as Nigeria, in line with the African target, insists that polluters must pay through adaptation finance. Onengie Fineface reports.
The long-awaited COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt is near upon us, and the global community is gathered here for negotiations expected to turn promises into action and make those deep commitments needed to resolve the climate crisis destroying the world.
Nigeria is focused on our negotiations in partnership with fellow African countries. In recognition of what we agreed in Kigali, what we call Kigali Declaration, and of course what we also agreed in the Amsterdam Declaration, to focus on afforestation, to focus on climate finance, to focus on the need to mitigate desertification, and of course to emphasize on loss and damage. It is important, it is key to addressing some of the challenges in Africa.
Now, beyond the activities of the ministry, some Nigerian youth are on ground to learn the skill of negotiation and also add their voices to global clamor for action to protect the African continent.
We are looking at how our government is going to put a position that is not going to exclude us when it comes to implementation, but is going to include us when it comes to implementation back home.
The climate adaptation finance should be made available to even the most vulnerable, because sometimes they don't even have this intervention plans. They are not even aware. Sometimes that intervention is there, but since they are not aware, they don't even know how to assess it.
A major concern for the African continent and for Nigeria especially is support for mitigation, adaptation, and building resilience of people who are often inundated by climatic extremes. From Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, NTA Fine Face. NTA News.
Back home in Nigeria, to pave way for peaceful Yuletide festivities and the ongoing campaigns nationwide, the Nigerian army, supported by other security components, has commenced various operations across hotspots throughout the country. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya, made this known during lunch with troops of Theatre Command Northeast Operation Hatnankei at Maimalari Military Cantonment, Maiduguri. Mohammed Ibrahim reports.
Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Farouk Yahya had, during this weekend visit, identified with troops engaged in counter-insurgency operations at Baga in Kuka local government area of Borno State and inaugurated Maternity and Child Health Center, Doctors Lodge and Regimental Sergeant Major's quarters. While hosting top brass commanders, sector commanders and senior officers of Theatre Command Operation Hatnankei and those of Multinational Joint Task Force to a launch, General Yahya expressed appreciation of the Army High Command to the country's president for providing all the needed resources, as well as the collaborative efforts of the Air Force, Navy and other sister security agencies, including the troops that have led to successes achieved in various security operations across the country.
Despite certain achieved, we must remain alert and vigilant and aggressive in what we do. And in accordance with our code of conduct and rule of engagement, the very details of professional army and Nigerian army are still valid of being alert every time.
The Army Chief assured Nigerians that the military will not rest on its oars in providing security with the coming Yuletide and for the elections in 2023. In Maiduguri, Muhammad Ibrahim, NTA News.
Meanwhile, security reports point at political thuggery as a potential threat to the elections. The threat concerns came to the fore at the release of the second and third quarter security situation report for Kaduna State. Anthony Forson reports.
Raising the threat political thuggery poses to the forthcoming general election is the Director of Kaduna State Command of the Department of State Security.
Sir, we are likely to be challenged by political thuggery. It's a thing that we really need to prepare for. So since we are all represented here from various communities, it's a message we need to take back home. The youths of various communities must be sensitized against thuggery, because the little thing we have seen, which is just the beginning, is an indication that there is a lot to be done. Hence, they should be sensitized.
The event, which was meant to present the second and third quarter 2022 security situation report of the state, gave heads of military formations in the state the opportunity to make inputs to the conversation.
The air operations in this theater are heavily dependent on information that we receive from the security agencies and from the Kaduna State itself. And as noted, our air operations have improved in recent times.
I want to appeal that the public come forward with information, especially when they see people planting devices in their farms or along roads that the military frequents.
The security situation, especially in the southern part of Kaduna, has improved. For Operation Safe Haven, covering 5 local government areas of Kaduna State, which are Kaura, Kauru, Zangon Kataf, Jama'a and Sanga, we are going to continue to do what we are doing right. We are going to continue with our efforts to ensure that there is lasting peace, to ensure that the security improves in these 5 local government areas we are covering.
For Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed and his host Nasir El-Rufai, their position on fighting insecurity remained consistent.
We begin to understand that we are dealing with a complex issue. These issues didn't start yesterday, but we finally got a very firm handle on them.
The Northwest Theatre Command will enable a holistic approach to counter-insurgency operations across the affected states and the enhanced coordination of the resources of the armed forces, the police, the SSS, our respective state vigilance services, hunters and other local volunteers to fight the insurgents.
The quarterly security situation report was a clear vindication that the Nigerian armed forces and affiliate security agencies are on top of the situation. Anthony Forson, NTA News.
The All Progressives Congress APC in Nasarawa State has flagged off its campaign with a mandate to mobilize grassroots support to ensure victory of all APC candidates in the 2023 general elections. The national chairman of APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, joined Governor Abdullahi Sule to garner votes for the party. Aliu Tijani reports.
Few months to the 2023 general elections, the All Progressives Congress APC in Nasarawa State has stepped up campaign to retain power next year. The gains recorded in infrastructural development, investment in agriculture and other sectors, Governor Abdullahi Sule says, are a manifestation of good governance his administration has provided for the people of the state.
We are going to put in all our energy into this campaign until we deliver, because we want to deliver, we want to come back, we want to continue with the good work that we are doing.
National Chairman of APC, Senator Abdullahi Adamu, Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, Senator Umaru Tanko Almakura, among other APC stalwarts, urged the people of the state to re-elect Governor Abdullahi Sule and ensure victory of all APC candidates in the 2023 elections.
4 plus 4. How can I? 4 plus. He wants all the governors of APC to return. He wants more states to become APC states. And therefore, in that context, what does he want? Continuity in this state.
Every committed and loyal member of APC will start his campaign right now. Day in, day out, night in, night out.
The party says it will embark on door-to-door campaign to ensure overwhelming victory for the party next year. In Lafia, Aliu Tijani, NTA News.
Meanwhile, women groups from the northwest geopolitical zone of the country have declared their support for the PDP presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar, saying he has the capacity to tackle Nigeria's challenges. The groups made their position known during a PDP summit in Kano. Awal Salisu reports that the theme of the summit is strengthening the northwest women's political participation through inclusion.
The convergence of these women groups on Kano is to drum support for the presidential bid of PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar in the upcoming 2023 general elections. Wife of the PDP standard bearer, Princess Rukayat Atiku Abubakar, expressed the hope that with the support of women from the zone, her husband is sure of winning the forthcoming general elections. She said, if given the mandate, Atiku Abubakar will ensure women and youth inclusion in governance.
We will take care of women, empower them, and issue capital to make them economically independent.
Different stakeholders call on Nigerians, especially women and youth, to cast their votes for Atiku Abubakar to enable him implement his roadmap for the economic recovery of the country.
If elected, he will give 40%
appointive position to women because women are trustworthy, just and compassionate.
There's the thinking that a woman should not get a political position is not known because half of the religion, Islam, our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said we should get it from Nana Aisha, his wife, who is a woman. So if that is not representation, we don't know what that is anymore.
Waves of the PDP governorship candidates from the 7 states in the zone participated in the summit. In Kano, Awal Salisu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development and the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, have received essential products from 2 corporate organizations to support flood victims in the country. Elizabeth Omori has the details.
With the commencement of distribution of relief materials to flood victims, more organizations are contributing. The latest is the donation by the Care Pack family and Business Visa.
We are very proud to list out these items, homemade, processed here, and also empowered the producers as well, in a way. So we're happy to be in this partnership.
We are very passionate about also patronizing other Nigerian businesses to help Nigerians in actual need.
Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, who received the items on behalf of the ministry, handed over the items to NEMA for onward distribution.
They will give you feedback, either in photo, on video, or in writing, to show you how people have received and benefited from your support.
In times like this, it is the great Nigerian spirit helping neighbor that will give succor and rekindle hope amongst our brothers and sisters in distress. I want to also use this opportunity to assure you that the relief materials will be deployed immediately and directly to the end users.
Items donated include noodles, vegetable oil, tomato pastes, mosquito nets, sanitizers, among others. The Permanent Secretary appealed to humanitarian organizations and individuals to assist in building stronger mechanisms against disasters. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
Similarly, the Northeast Development Commission, NEDC, has distributed essential items including food to flood victims in Adamawa State to cushion the effect of the disaster. Yusuf Chika reports.
174,000 persons in 254 communities of Adamawa State were affected by the flood disaster this year. To cushion the effect of the flooding, the Northeast Development Commission has presented relief items to Adamawa State government for onward distribution to the affected communities. The NEDC Managing Director, Muhammad Goni Al-Kali, said the gesture is part of the World Humanitarian Day earlier observed.
We're already reaching to the state government, asking on how we are going to collaborate to sustain the situation as it is. And I'm sure the state government will very soon give us areas that need to be intervened.
Governor Amadou Marufentri of Adamawa State represented commended the foresight of the federal government in the provision of relief items.
You've always been with us and you've always acted timely.
Items shared are 10,000 bags of 25 kg rice, 3,000 gallons of vegetable oil, blankets, mats, children's wears, wrappers, among others. In Yola, Yusuf Jika, NTA News.
Let's now join our sports desk with Badi for updates.
We begin with football as head of operations of the Nigeria Professional Football League Interim Management Committee, Davidson Owumi, says no date has been fixed by the committee for the commencement of the 2022-2023 Nigeria Professional Football League season. Owumi insists the committee at the moment is working with relevant authorities to come up with a suitable date, adding that the information making the rounds that a date has been fixed is misleading. Still on football, home-based Super Eagles of Nigeria, also known as the Chan Eagles, have departed the country for San Jose ahead of the international friendly match against Costa Rica on November the 10th. The team, made up of 18 players and officials, left the shores of the country on Saturday. In the Premier League, 5 games will be decided Sunday as Chelsea welcome Arsenal to Stamford Bridge, while Manchester United go away to Aston Villa. West Ham United are at home to Crystal Palace, as Tottenham Hotspur will be taking on Liverpool at the new White Hart Lane Stadium. And finally to boxing. Chantel Cameron became Britain's first undisputed female champion after beating Jessica McCaskill by unanimous decision in Abu Dhabi. Cameron made easy work of the American at the Etihad Arena to become the undisputed light welterweight champion, with 3 judges ruling 96-94 in 2 cards and one scoring 97-93 in her favor. The victory extends Chantel Cameron's unbeaten record to 17 and adds the vacant WBA, IBO and WBO titles to our WBC and IBF belts. With sports update, Bade Adeleye, NTA News.
And on that winning note, we conclude News Panorama. Thanks for watching. Remember to keep standing with NTA against rape and rapists. I'm Naja Atutijani.
Watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
Welcome to Africa, the land of innocent civilization.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. You are armed with a machete and a gun.
See, I am angry and I can't even contain it. See.
Oh, my guy, calm down.
See,
calm down.
See, Oga. I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. Eh? I have to retaliate for what they've done at their own place. They cannot eat their cake and have it now, never.
If you destroy their business here and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold?
See, what you're saying is correct, but I'm still angry.
Best way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity,
my people, let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Natural disaster is a catastrophic event with atmospheric, geological and hydrological origins. They may be in the form of drought, earthquake, flood, hurricane and landslide that can cause fatalities, damage property and the social environment. These hazards oftentimes have overwhelming consequences on man and the environment, thus resulting in high mortality and morbidity. This scenario paints a vivid picture of the ravaging effects of this year's flood, which has claimed over 600 lives and displaced millions of people across 33 states of the Federation. It is evident that this year's flood disaster is more devastating compared with that of 2012 floods, described as the worst, having killed 363 persons, displaced over 2.1 million and affected 30 out of the 36 states of the Federation. The ravaging effects of the 2022 flood is the focus of today's discourse on Frontiers. My name is Obiageli Ugwoke. To give more insights to the flood situation and effort at mitigating the effects of the disaster is Mr. Hassan Nuhu, Director, Relief and Rehabilitation, National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you very much.
The program continues shortly. Once more, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, now, going by record, we have millions of Nigerians displaced due to the flood disaster. And just about 2 weeks ago, we saw that about 1.3 people are already displaced and hundreds dead. Going by this enormity, we know that NEMA has its hands really full by this disaster. Now, what is the situation like?
We have recorded 612 deaths, about 3.2 million people affected, and with about 1.4 million displaced in need of assistance. About 500,000 hectares of farmlands were some partially destroyed, some totally destroyed, and about 700,000 people are injured. This is the situation as at the last count. The water is still causing some damages in the southern part of the country. The northern part of the country has, up north, it has dried up completely, and the water is receding in the southern part of the country, but you still have issues there, and the experts have told us that it may extend up to the end of November before we can say that the flood situation is completely over. A lot of efforts have gone through from the beginning. This is a disaster that we can say has been anticipated. There was an early warning messages, an early warning. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency and the Nigerian Hydrological Services agencies have given us climate information hinging that flood is coming. We, as a catalyst agency, we added value to the warnings coming up from the Climate Services Agency by making it simpler and disseminating it to responsible authorities and to communities at risk. We made it simpler in a way by providing flood risk maps to now tell responsible authorities and the communities at risk that these are the areas that are likely to be flooded with maps, and then advising them on the higher ground that they can move for safety. We have communicated this to the governors, to our partners in the states, the state emergency management agencies, and we have worked assiduously together to convince the people to leave to higher grounds for safety. And we have proceeded to respond appropriately and efficiently to the consequences of the flood.
Now, it's been adjudged the worst flood disaster since NEMA was established, and we've seen your agency doing its best trying to provide food and non-food items to victims of the disaster in affected areas across the country, just like you've mentioned in some of the states. Now, what is the status of relief intervention?
Well, we have provided, as the flood started around March, April in some states, on a need basis, whenever there is an issue that we felt is beyond the capacity of the state to handle on its own, NEMA intervenes by supporting the effort of the state government. We've been doing this from March 2022 right down to this moment as we are talking now. We've dispatched relief assistance to all the affected states. And some states 1, 2, 3. Our own intervention is purely on a need basis. If there is need for assistance that it is adjudged to be beyond the coping capacity of the local government and the state, then NEMA provides support. In some states, we've been there like 3-4 times, depending on the situation. Now, in the northern part of the country, north central, we have passed the relief stage. But in the southern part of the country, in states like Anambra, Ebonyi, Delta, Bayelsa. Like Bayelsa State, this is at the peak of the situation now. So the relief effort is still ongoing there. We are delivering food, non-food items, and basic necessities of lives in all these locations. And we are still reassessing and assessing the situation. We will provide any time there is need. NEMA will try to plug in these needs.
But now, just as we all know that food is very important for man's survival, but water too is very vital. There are reported cases of cholera outbreak in some affected communities, and sources of water have been deeply contaminated by the flood waters. What is NEMA doing to address this problem?
We were fortunate to have at our disposal some water purification machines donated to the agency by the Japanese government through the Japan International Cooperation Agency. We dispatch these water purification machines to areas of critical need. It purifies water so that water become good drinking water. And we've done this in earnest. Anywhere there is need, we move these machines to. We've deployed to Jigawa, to Kogi, to Benue. Now we are moving the facility to the southern part of the country also. You know, when flood hit, the next secondary aftermath of it is cholera because of the contamination of the water. We've recorded already cases of cholera in Gombe, in Borno State. We have alerted the relevant ministry, the Ministry of Health, telling them that this is the situation and it is bound to continue in the affected states. And they have brazen off to the call. They lead in the area of health. What we do, we support, like when we have this, we supply disinfectants to the affected communities when it happens. But in terms of providing medical support, is the Ministry of Health, and they are quite aware of that responsibility and they have braced up to it.
Now, what is going to be NEMA's next action after the relief intervention?
Well, after relief, when the water recedes, people will naturally want to go back to their houses.
Exactly, because we have quite a number of them displaced.
So what NEMA is doing is to provide support to the people in terms of building materials. Cement, roofing sheets, ceiling board, nails are provided as a support to those who are affected. And we are now at the stage of post-disaster need assessment, comprehensive post-disaster need assessment, so that we can know what happened to all the sectors of the economy. And then what really happened, to have a deeper reflection of what happened. What have we done right? What have you done wrong? Why are we having such a number of people dead? Why are we having such loss to critical infrastructure? We need a comprehensive post-disaster need assessment to do that. And we are already talking with the World Bank. They are going to help us with what they call GRADE, Global Post-Disaster Assessment. Using satellite imageries and remote sensing, and we'll be able to, within a couple of weeks, have an estimate of what happened to the economy, to agriculture, to critical infrastructure, so that we can plan a comprehensive recovery package because apart from losing lives and properties, the flood have affected the livelihood of the people, especially in agriculture.
Farmlands have been destroyed, ravaged in different communities.
Over 500,000 farmlands have so far been destroyed. So we want to know where, who is affected, so that we can also support in the agricultural sector. You cannot do all these things unless you have a comprehensive assessment. While we are doing the ground survey, we also want to complement it with remote sensing and satellite imageries to have a comprehensive assessment of what happened, so that it can guide our support in terms of rehabilitation and in terms of recovery.
All right, we'll pause for a while. I'll get back to you. You're watching Frontiers, and the focus is the 2022 flood disaster. We will be back in just a moment. Just stay with us. Thanks for being there. Now, talking about intervention. Before even the commencement of the rainfall, the Nigerian Hydrological Services and its sister agency, Meteorological Agency, has released some predictions of this flooding across Nigeria. What is your take regarding the level of preparation on the parts of the state government and other actors?
Well, I would say there is some level of improvement, but still much needs to be done, because these predictions were released as early as February by NIMET, and then the flood outlook came in the first week of May, telling us in specific terms the expected communities that will be flooded, and this was disseminated to responsible agencies and the communities at risk. And one will wonder why we still have this loss of human lives in particular. It shows that really people do not adhere to these early warnings. In Kogi, our officers were there and pleaded with the people to leave. They said they will leave when the water comes, and it comes with a lot of devastation. So we need to improve in our reach to the people. Our advocacy has to increase and focus directly to communities at risk. We need to reach out to traditional institutions, traditional rulers, religious leaders, community leaders, for people to understand that these warnings are real, not imaginary. They are scientific, they are real, and they should adhere to them. We shouldn't continue to lose lives needlessly. If you see the statistics, the water level exceeds that of 2012, and yet the number of people affected is about 3.2 million. And what we have in 2012 is almost double that number. So in terms of number of people affected, it has reduced. In terms of displaced persons, so far we have about 1.4, which is significantly lower than 2012. So while we are making progress...
So all this effort is attributed to the early warnings?
Yeah, to the continuous improvements we are having in our approach to the warnings that we received, and also some investments that some states have made in terms of building drainages and culverts to ward off this flood. So while some progress has been made in some areas, unfortunately, the number of people lost in 2022 almost double that of 2012. So, and it is from the human angle. People didn't listen to the warnings to move. So we have to invest more in enhancing the capacity of the local communities to be able to appreciate these warnings and act on them.
Now, you briefly mentioned some organizations that are already into synergy with NEMA. Tell us more about the interagency collaborations between NEMA and maybe National Environmental Standards and other organizations towards mitigating the impact of the flooding.
Well, you know, every disaster is multidisciplinary, multi-jurisdictional, multi-resource endeavor. To be able to attend to it effectively, you have to bring everybody, federal, state, and local government. At the federal level, all the relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. At the state level, all the relevant state ministries, departments, and agencies. At the local government, all the relevant departments. So, when you are talking of water, sanitation, and hygiene, Federal Ministry of Water Resources lead in that respect. If we have any situation of flooding, they are supposed to provide water in the IDP camp. They are supposed to also lead in providing sanitation and hygiene at the camps. Then for all health issues, is within the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Health. For NFIs, NEMA is leading. NEMA provide NFIs, NEMA provide food to the affected population. For issues of temporary shelter, the National Commission for Refugees and NEMA provide that support to affected people. Then environmental issues, like now that the water is receding, there are a lot of environmental backlogs. To restore the environment back to where it was before the flood, the Federal Ministry of Environment, NESRIA, are leading in that respect. So it is a work for everybody. In terms of organizing such a rescue, the fire service, federal and state fire service, are supposed to lead in the area of search and rescue, searching for victims and rescuing them. What NEMA does is to provide the umbrella that all these stakeholders will come together, and also we lead in some aspects the gamut of activities that are required, and we also plug in the gaps. We are not leading in terms of water supply, but we provide water because we have to provide the immediate support where it is needed and not available. Sometimes we go in, we provide medicaments where there are gaps. So NEMA provide an umbrella for everybody to be able to operate, and then where there are gaps, we strive to plug in such gaps.
The 2022 flood devastation, it's a disaster that will no doubt linger in the minds of many Nigerians. What can be done to tackle its recurrence? Because we see it recurring, like from 2012 up to this moment, we've seen about 10 billion people being affected by the same disaster. Now, what will be done for prevention and as well to help tackle its recurrence?
Elsewhere, globally, we need to invest more on understanding this flood risk, both at the federal, state and local government level, we should deepen our understanding of the risk. Why does it happen? How can we prevent it? We should deepen that our understanding. 2, we need to strengthen the disaster risk governance that we have in Nigeria at both the tiers. We should strengthen NEMA the more, strengthen SEMA, strengthen the local government emergency management committee, and strengthen the various departments, ministries, departments, and agencies in their own responsibilities in handling the issues of the flood. And number 3, we should invest more in disaster risk reduction so that we increase the resilience of the community. The community should have sufficient resilience. If the people are resilient, they wouldn't wait really.
And even after the warnings, some still insisted.
So we need to make more investment in disaster risk reduction in infrastructures, in flood risk infrastructures, and also in the capacity of the people. And then 4, we should work very hard on our level of preparedness. Level of preparedness here refers to even the early warning system. We need to strengthen it. We need to have more preposition resources to be able to say we are prepared. We need to sharpen our response mechanism. Who is involved? What do we need to do? We need to do that. We need to improve on our communication system, to do joint rehearsal with all the stakeholders and training. And finally, we should build back better. When we are recovering from 2012 flood, every recovery effort should be better than what it was before the flood and should have the capacity to withstand the next round of flooding.
So hopefully everything will get better and bounce back to normal. Thank you very much, Mr. Nuhu. We sincerely appreciate you for coming on the program, and thank you for the detailed analysis of the situation on ground, as well as response and prevention of the flooding disaster in Nigeria.
Thank you. We appreciate.
I will close with a charge by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres at the celebration of this year's International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. He encouraged all countries to invest in early warning systems and support those who lack capacity, adding that extreme weather events will happen, but they do not need to become deadly disasters. My name is Obiageli Ugwoke. Thanks for your time.
Welcome to Africa, the land of unison civilization.
From dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day, NTA International is with you. In your living room, office, and everywhere, anywhere. We provide the company you desire in terms of balanced and up-to-date news, programs, and the best of entertainment. Tune in to DSTV channel 251, GoTV channel 91, Freeview channel 264, or live streaming via www.visiontv.co.uk. And to watch NTA International in the USA, Canada, and Mexico, use the following satellite parameters. You can also see us on Facebook and YouTube for quality content on the go. NTA International, Africa's window to the world.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International, your window to the world.
This week, we turn our focus to the US midterm elections and the possibility that the vote could change the balance of power in the US Congress. Will Republicans or Democrats be calling the shots on how and where the US spends its money? And how will the outcome affect America's relationship and commitments to countries in Africa? And the US Green Card Lottery is open, but not for long. We'll have everything you need to know about qualifying for a chance to win an immigrant visa. Straight Talk Africa starts now. Hello there and a warm welcome. I'm Haiti Adams. Thank you so much for joining me. November 8th is the midterm election day in the United States, and voters will decide who controls the two chambers of the U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And this year, all 435 seats in the House of Representatives will be on the ballot, as well as 35 out of the 100 seats in the Senate. Right now, Democrats have a slim majority in both houses, and that has allowed President Joe Biden to get important parts of his legislative agenda passed in Congress. If, however, Republicans gain a majority in one or both houses, they will have the ability to block that agenda going forward. Well, now, for more insight, we cross to VOA's congressional correspondent, Catherine Gibson. She is on Capitol Hill for us. Catherine, so nice to see you. Tell us, what are the issues likely to drive American voters to the polls this cycle?
Right. Well, Haiti, we know that far and away what's going to be driving American voters to the polls this year is the economy. In most public opinion polls about this election, almost 3/4 of American voters say that they're worried about rising inflation, rising cost of living, and how the American economy is going to be coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic still. So they're saying that they want to vote on the person, those representatives who are going to be working for them to make sure that this situation is addressed. Now, of course, we know that Republicans are arguing that Democrats have had that chance and have not been able to revive the economy quickly enough. Democrats are pointing to some of those legislative gains that Biden was able to pass up here on Capitol Hill, saying that they really addressed that in terms of giving money to working families, climate change bonuses to get that economy up and running. So that's really going to be a matter of who thinks that Joe Biden has had these 2 years. Has he done enough with them? Of course, we also know that social issues are a big issue this election too. We know that abortion, after the U.S. Supreme Court Dobbs decision earlier this year, that a lot of voters, independents, females are registering to vote, that's a sign that they may come out in large numbers to make sure that they can protect the abortion rights.
Well, the jury is still out on whether 2 years is a long or short time in politics, of course. But, Catherine, President Biden's agenda hangs in the balance here. Which parts of that legislative agenda of his are most at risk? Should Republicans gain control of either one or both chambers of the U.S. Congress?
Well, I think we have to go back to abortion rights there. You know, Democrats up here on Capitol Hill want to make sure that they pass that federal protection for abortion rights. If Republicans, as you mentioned, are in control of one or both chambers, that is absolutely going to be blocked, and they will likely come through with their own federal measure, making sure that abortion is illegal all across the United States. That we'll also see some blockage possibly of the right to marriage, gay marriage. We'll see, you know, a lot of different investigations into the Biden administration. That's a lot of time that will be consumed up here if Republicans do indeed take control.
Well, a lot at stake indeed. Catherine Gibson is VOA's congressional correspondent. Catherine, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, U.S. lawmakers control the country's purse strings, and the next Congress will call the shots on spending in a range of critical areas. Let's take a closer look at what is at stake, and for that I am joined here in studio by Steve Reddish. He is an executive producer here at the Voice of America, and Maria Bird joins us as well. She covers Washington, all things Washington and politics here for VOA's affiliate Channels Television in Nigeria. Maria and Steve, a warm welcome to you both. Thank you so much for joining me here on Straight Talk Africa. Neither of you a stranger to the show. Steve, what should we be looking out for in these midterm elections? What is at stake for the United States and for those outside of this country?
At stake for the United States is control of Congress, as Catherine mentioned. As you mentioned in the open, it's about all of the 435 members of the House of Representatives and a third of the Senate, about a third of the Senate. But what's really at stake is whether or not President Biden is going to be able to get the rest of his agenda enacted. He went for some of his agenda was enacted. He was able to get some of climate protection through. Medicare and Medicaid, help for the elderly as far as their health needs, and help for the poor as far as their health needs. He was able to get some of that through. Will he be able to get all of that through? Only if both chambers of Congress remain in Democratic hands. And so one of the things that we've been hearing lately, and what might be interesting for the rest of the world, is the concern of whether or not the United States will remain a partner, will remain as active a partner in the in Ukraine's battle against Russia. We have heard the House Minority Leader, the leader of the Republicans, Kevin McCarthy, say within the last few weeks that if Republicans are elected into the House of Representatives, don't expect a blank check for Ukraine. Whether or not that extends to other countries, it remains to be seen. But a Republican Congress will not likely be seen as friendly to be sending money, whether it be to Ukraine or any other countries around the world.
Maria, speaking of defunding some of President Biden's priorities, how would a Republican majority in the Senate and the House of Representatives, how could that affect President Biden's commitments that he has made, especially to African countries?
You know, you bring up some very key points here. We have to remember the Republican Party is almost split in two. You have those who are part of the MAGA Republican Party, which is people are often referring to it as, especially President Biden. And then you have those traditionalists in the Republican Party. And so I think the real question is, where's the Republican Party going to sit as a whole? As we know, most of the front runners and those who are running for office in the Republican Party, who are now down to the November 8th election time cycle, are those who have heavily been supported by President Trump. And so when we look at that, that is going to have a major impact on the Africa policies. Now, we also know that President Biden has made a commitment for greater partnerships, for additional additional resources, for expansion of economic engagement and relations and trade relationships with Africa. And so the real question is, we're probably going to be looking at a stalemate within that. We do know that the Republicans that are supporters of former President Trump are heavily focused on very key fundamental pieces. In Africa, I don't believe is going to be one of those key areas that they're going to be focused in on. Now, we also know that when you look at what's happening with the economy, Africa is very much concerned about the U.S. economy, focusing on how we're going to deal with this inflation, how we're going to deal with rising interest rates, at the same time knowing the good news of the job reports that just came out. And so there's a lot at stake here. We also know that how this has a heavy impact on the world economy as well.
Steve, what's your take on what's most at risk in Biden's agenda, even both domestically and abroad?
What I see most at risk is Biden's ability or inability, especially if the U.S. Senate goes Republican, he will be unable to get on the domestic side, get judges through a confirmation process. The president nominates judges, the Senate confirms judges. If the Senate is in Republican hands, it is not likely that many, if any, of Biden's nominees to federal courts or the Supreme Court would be able to get a vote in the Senate. So that's number one. Going back to what Maria said as far as Republicans and the economy and Africa specifically, with interest rates high, that's a less of an incentive for businesses to invest in various different areas, to make either risky or whatever kind of investments. So until inflation can be handled, we're not going to see the kind of investment in various different areas of the world by American companies. With inflation high, inflation is higher everywhere else but the United States. That said, the economy is the number one thing as well. Many people in the United States, a recent poll by the New York Times showed that they see the threat to democracy here in the United States by election deniers, by those who follow former President Trump's claims that the 2020 election was rigged. The question of democracy is high on everybody's list, but very few people say it's the most important thing. They still, as Catherine mentioned, it's the economy.
Correct. Well, what, Maria, is energizing black voters in this cycle, especially young black voters?
What's energizing is really, looking at what's available in the marketplace. We know that post-COVID, if we can even call it post-COVID, there's the silent resignation happening. If you look at the young people today, they're really talking about wanting to have jobs that are impactful. They could care less about a corner office. They could care less about a $200,000 salary. They could care less about a parking lot. What they want to know is what kind of impact are they having on a larger world. They're very concerned about abortion rights issues. They're very concerned about the economy. They're very concerned about education, which has not changed, and as we know it since we can remember. And so those are some of the key components that are going to bring them out. But what we also know is that African American women are largely going to go out to vote. They were a large part of the last election cycle, and they will be this time. The greatest challenge is African American men. Where will they sit? Because many of them are being pulled by the Republican Party just due to some of the challenges that exist for African American men and how the Democrats have responded to that. So that's going to be, I think, a real area the Democrats are going to have to focus in a little bit more on, and are likely going to over the next couple of days. You start to see some of the larger, former President Barack Obama is out. President Biden has a whole tour that he's doing. So I think that's going to be the question, is how many are going to really be able to respond to the needs today? Because even though employment rates and the job market is expanding, in the African American community, it's still suffering. And so who's going to respond to that need?
Steve, very briefly, speaking of former President Barack Obama out on the campaign trail, we're also seeing former President Donald Trump out there. But Barack Obama has been decrying what he calls the lack of basic civility and the lack of democratic norms in American politics today. Very briefly, and I know it's not a lot of time, but how would you describe the state of American politics today?
Tense. as tense as I've seen in my lifetime. I lived through the 1960s and the political assassinations of the 1960s. And the anti-war protests there. I saw and experienced what happened in the late 70s when the economy tanked and American hostages were taken by Iran, and that was a tense time in American politics. Now it is there's such bitterness between Republicans and Democrats, and mistrust and misinformation between the two parties, that this is perhaps the most tense time of modern American politics that we have seen.
Well, this is certainly going to be very interesting. Maria, how very real is the fear that former President Donald Trump himself might be making a comeback?
I think that is a very real reality that I think many are facing and beginning to understand. I think that as you look at what's happening with these midterm elections, and you look at really when you talk about we're in a time of reconstruction in some way. It's time to look at, how our infrastructure, and when you listen to the Republican Party, they're very heavy in having an answer to how they will address that. And so former President Trump coming back in, I think, is a reality. I think that what we've seen with Supreme Court Justice John Roberts putting a temporary hold on the tax returns being released for former President Trump is all part of the plan and the strategy that when we look at the next election cycle, that he will be
and it's a fear on one side. I mean, there is enthusiasm on the Republican side of the return of Donald Trump.
But as Maria mentioned about the split in the Republican Party, Donald Trump controls maybe 30% really controls about 30% of that. The rest of them are go along to get along, and how we'll see where the rest of that 70% of the Republican Party falls is going to be very interesting over the next 2 years.
Maria Bird, Steve Reddish, this is interesting indeed. We'll have you both back again. Thank you so much for your insights and some analysis here. I do appreciate it. Well, still to come here on Straight Talk Africa, the U.S. Green Card Lottery is open, but as we said, not for long. We'll tell you what you need to know to win a chance to apply for an immigrant visa. Stay with us. Keep it right here on Straight Talk Africa. We'll be back after the break. Now with Straight Talk Africa here on the Voice of America, welcome back. Have you ever heard of the U.S. Green Card Lottery? Well, it's a program that gives people from countries with low immigration rates to the United States a chance to apply for a U.S. immigrant visa. Now, the lottery window is open right now, but it closes on Saturday, November 5th. And here to tell us how it works is Johanna LeBlanc. She's an immigration law expert and the managing partner at LeBlanc Global Consulting. Johanna, warm welcome to Straight Talk Africa. Great to see you here again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Johanna, this is very interesting. I've never tried anything like this. So you tell us, how does one become eligible for this? Which countries are eligible, especially for our African audience? And what kind of people are eligible for this?
Right now, the only country that is not eligible is Nigeria. And the reason being is because Nigeria has had 50,000 people or more to enter the United States over the past 5 years. And there are numerous other countries from Latin America and across the world that are also not eligible. But in terms of who is eligible, you have to be a national of any country on the African continent except for Nigeria. You have to you could be single, you could be married, you could be a student, you could be here on a tourist visa and still apply. So the list is very expansive in terms of who can apply. But applying and actually being selected are two different stages, right? So you could apply, but once you apply, you meet the requirements such as the education requirement, or if you're not educated in terms of having a college degree or even a high school diploma or something that's equivalent to it, you need to have some kind of work experience, 2 years of experience within certain fields over the past 2 years or so. However, what's important to note is that once you've been selected, you have to prove everything that you've said. So if you say that you're married, you have to prove that you are indeed married by showing a valid marriage certificate from a government that is recognized, right? And if you say that you have a high school diploma, where is that high school diploma? You have to be able to furnish evidence in order to move forward to the next step of the process. And also, I think it's important to know that you could be a national, you could be a Nigerian national, you could be a national of Ghana, for example, but yet you're living in Ghana. Does that mean you are qualified? Absolutely, you can still apply.
Now, on top of being lucky, you need to have all those other things going for you. But how, Johanna, does the actual selection process then work? Because this isn't about just winning a green card. You win a chance to apply, right?
Absolutely. The process, millions of people apply, and the process is incredibly difficult to be selected because people are selected randomly by a system. And as I said earlier, once you're selected, you still have to furnish evidence, right? And if you are a married couple, for example, you can apply with your children and your spouse.
So you can bring your family.
Absolutely. And so you can apply for your spouse and your family, and your spouse could also apply, right? So now you have two chances, right? You've been able to apply twice, but you cannot apply individually more than once. But as a family, your spouse can apply, or you can apply with your family.
So, Johanna, what does a green card give you as an immigrant exactly? I mean, quick questions here. What's the length of stay?
A green card is a green card. You're eligible to live in the country for as long as you want. And what's also important to note is that as a green card holder in America, you are eligible for a host of services like social programs, right? Healthcare and all sorts of benefits and the ability to have employment at various institutions. But what's also important to note here is that within 5 years of having a green card, you can apply to citizenship. So it is a surest pathway to citizenship into this country.
I find some of this a little bit confusing, not the process and all of that, but, there's so much talk in the United States around immigration, a very heated debate, and people being made to feel unwelcome. How come the U.S. is then giving this opportunity? What does the United States hope to accomplish with this green card lottery?
I think the United States understands that this nation was built on the back of immigrants. This nation also understands the contribution of immigrants currently living in this country. The United States wants to attract some of the best and brightest from all over the world. What's interesting is that even though you're not required to have a PhD, you're not required to have a master's degree to enter under the diversity visa lottery program. However, what we have seen is that the program attracts some of the best and brightest all across the world. So America understands the importance of bringing in that ingenuity to further build this nation, to ensure that this nation maintain one of the most powerful countries in the world. And again, immigrants are the fabric of this nation that contribute heavily to the U.S. economy in so many different aspects of science, math, law, and so forth.
Johanna, and of course, does this change according to administration? I mean, does this open every year? How does that work? And should another president come into power who, doesn't feel quite so welcoming, does this process change?
Well, we saw under President Trump that he had concerns with the diversity visa lottery program. He indicated that folks should be able to enter into this country based on merits, right? But the unfortunate reality is that the visa lottery process is probably one of the surest ways to come into the United States unless you have families in the country, you have an employment opportunity. Let's face it, most people don't just get a visa to come and work into the United States, right? It is incredibly hard to secure. Of course, the visa lottery process is just as difficult, but that is one avenue. And some have said that it should be based on merits. But the caveat is that when it comes to immigration, usually the president of the United States has a huge influence on what happens, and usually the Supreme Court sides with the president, because if the president can make an argument, this is in the national security interest of the United States to perhaps cancel this program or not to utilize this program during his administration, the president could very well get away with that, unfortunately, because the Constitution gives the president so much authority when it comes to immigration.
Johanna, give people an idea of how much wherewithal one needs to come to the United States to make a life, at least get started here. I mean, people have varying stories, that is true. But, you know, what should you be prepared to pay for out of pocket? Because, you know, we always hear stories about people saying we came here with $5 and $2. Yes, but that was another lifetime ago. What should people be prepared to spend to build a life in America?
Absolutely. If you're one of the lucky ones who's chosen to come into the United States and start a new life, congratulations. But just know that America is incredibly expensive. But at the time of being selected, you would be eligible to find a host family, right? The question is, how long will this host family give you, right? Can you live with this host family for 3 months, 2 months, a year, right? Because you still have to secure employment. You have to get a car. You have to get a Social Security card. You have to get yourself prepared to fully integrate into the American society, and it can be quite costly. And what people need to also understand is that your host family is not your sponsor. Your host family simply says that you can live at my address for a specific period of time, and that is based on what is agreed between you and the host family. But America is very attractive for a lot of people all across the world, because although here in America we are dealing with inflation, with a very tense democracy right now with the different parties, right, with the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, we have a host of challenges when it comes to student loans, right? But America is still very appealing to most people because there's a slither of hope that exists that if you work hard, if you play by the rules, if you go to school, if you follow the law, if you follow the rules, that you can be successful. And I think that is what makes America so much attractive to so many immigrants all across this world.
I think we all come from tense democracies these days. But Johanna, can you just briefly tell people about what they need to know even to apply or to even get into this lottery? Although the more you talk, I'm like, is this really a lottery? Because it sounds like a lot of administration here. But what do people need to know about just applying? Because it is free, right?
Absolutely, it is free. And be aware of scammers because there are a host of companies and individuals that are taking advantage of the vulnerable, telling folks, if you pay me a certain amount of money, your chances of getting the Visa lottery is much greater. But this process is free. Now, if you need assistance because you're not tech savvy, you can go ahead and find someone and pay them to help you with the application. But if you can read, you can pretty much complete the application. It's fairly easy. It could take about 30 minutes to complete. Just make sure that when at the moment that you open the application, you have all of your documents with you, right? So that you can input the information into the system. That is one. And two, just be honest and be truthful in the application process, right? And also, thirdly, the application is on statedepartment.gov, right? dvprograms.state.gov. If it's a .com, if it's an EU, if it's a CPC, whatever it may be, it is not valid. It has to be a .gov web address. So I just want folks to really understand, don't let people take advantage of you. It's a lot of con artists out there trying to make money off of individuals who may not be familiar with the process. And lying on the application is not going to help you to win, because once you become eligible, you still have to meet with a consular officer at the U.S. Embassy at some point, and you have to furnish evidence of everything that you have said on your application.
Wow, that's a long process. But Johanna, thank you so much for helping breaking it down for us. Johanna LeBlanc, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And if you would like to try your luck, just go to the U.S. Embassy website for your home country, and you can register online there. Registration, as we said, is easy and it is free. I don't know about easy though. Also, go to our Facebook page. You will find the link to the application there. It is VOA Straight Talk Africa. And that is where we will leave it for this week. Thank you so much to all my guests. And of course, thank you to you, our audience, for joining me. From our team here in Washington, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTAI. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile devices to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window to the world.
Welcome to Africa, the land of innocent civilization.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve their sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Ebola disease is a deadly disease caused by an infection with a group of viruses within the genus Ebola virus, with occasional outbreaks that occur mostly on the African continent. Ebola virus disease affects human beings and non-human primates, such as monkeys, gorillas, and chimpanzees. In March 2014, the World Health Organization reported cases of Ebola virus disease in the forested rural region of southeastern Guinea. The identification of these early cases marked the beginning of the West African Ebola epidemic, the largest in history. The 2014-2016 outbreak in West Africa was the largest and most complex since the discovery of the virus in 1976.